I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. Can I get approval of the meeting minutes of March 31st and for April 3rd, 2014?
I move the approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Township of Evanston bills.
Oh, she's skipping citizen comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, citizen comment. We have one person, maybe two, for non-agenda items. Nicholas, and I can't pronounce your last name, I'm sorry. So, fantastic, you are up for citizen comment.
Is it possible to have somebody put a video on the overhead?
But these are non-agenda items, so when you're on the agenda, then we can do
Okay.
video.
First of all, I thank everybody for taking their time. I come here really with a heavy heart, with no malice towards anybody. period.
Can you speak into the mic? Thank you.
I come here with no malice towards anybody, but I come here with heavy concerns. And this is to be on the record with these concerns. And one is, why is the community that I love is being dragged into federal court on civil rights issues? You know, and I have a fear that the community eventually is going to end up paying money. You know, we had an incident when a 12-year-old got handcuffed. Okay, we got lucky. The judge didn't put any money on that. About a month ago, we have a guy that gets beat up, ends up in the hospital. We are going to be sued. We, the community, not the police department. The community would end up paying for it. And being in Evanston, I've lived here for over 25 years. And my wife and I made a choice to come live in Evanston. And the reason for that is that Evanston represents a certain culture we have here. There's certain things we do in Evanston that other places don't. One of the greatest things we have in Evanston is, first of all, is our school system. We have great schools here. We have great middle schools, great high school. We have a great university. And that is part of our culture here. We value education. This is a good place to raise kids. And that's what we did. My son is 28, my daughter is 26. They're graduates of the high school. Great experience. And I think because of that experience, they're pretty well adjusted in the world today. You know, we hear this stuff about race in the NBA and that. I'm not saying it guarantees my kid from being racist, but they've grown up with kids with different cultures, and that is a gift. And that's something we have in Evanston. You might say Oak Park has it. You might say Beverly, Hyde Park. But these are all unique places. The other thing that's unique about Evanston, we have certain ethics, certain ways of doing things. And one is, as a community, we value social justice. And we have a history of that. It starts from the railroad, the Underground Railroad, into the 1960s, where Evanston took it upon themselves to integrate the schools. We were not court-ordered. At that time, we had great leadership, a guy named Joseph Hill, and took it upon himself to do the right thing. He happened to be my neighbor when I moved to Evanston. And I believe we're losing our way. We're losing our way. Why are we getting sued? For violation of civil rights, the Fourth Amendment, us in Evanston, of all people. We have a disconnect. You know, there's a disconnect between the community and the police department. There's a disconnect there, and I want to be on record as saying that. The question is, does this police department...
And you have about 10 seconds left to wrap up your 3 minutes.
Oh, I didn't know I had 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry,
Can
that's
I
always
ask for 2 minutes more?
You can ask for about 30 seconds more.
Okay. So we have a disconnect here between the values of the community and the values of the people that are supposed to protect us. I come here because of an incident. It's all public record. I wish the committee would look at the videotapes. This has been a learning process for me as a citizen. I never did this before. I asked twice for freedom of information. The first one was a bogus one. It was a picture of a building. Come on. So I had to ask again and got the right one. I had to report that the names of the people that were there weren't even mentioned. We deserve better. Better. And I ended on this. In my previous life, I was a history teacher on the west side of Chicago. And by law, we have to teach the Constitution. And when we got to the police part, they were angry. Maybe now I begin to feel why the kids are angry when there's that disconnect between us and our law enforcement.
And I should note that you'll be on the agenda for our next meeting in June. Is that correct? Yes, so that at that time, you'll have another chance to talk about the issue.
I was hoping I would resolve this today because I don't want it on my plate.
Yeah, it takes a while to get on the agenda, and I think that you've been informed that was on the June agenda, correct?
I was informed by Alderman Holmes that I'm here to speak whenever I want to, and the police department does not set the agenda.
No, but
Let me
when
speak to that.
they don't, please, Alderman
I
Holmes.
didn't say that. What I said to you, you can come anytime to speak. We have citizens' comments. But you file a complaint, that has to go through a process. And we're understanding now, I didn't realize that, because when we spoke on Friday, I didn't know you were on the agenda for June. But now when you come up on the agenda, then you can come back and it will be discussed with Commander Davis or the chief or whoever's going to be here to represent. So that's the process that happens with citizens' complaints with the police department.
When I started this, I went to the clerk's office
Yeah, and
I asked to be on the agenda.
Yeah, but the
the
clerk
clerk doesn't do our agenda.
doesn't set the agenda.
Who does?
Currently, I help to set the agenda, but the police.
Did you inform me of me being on the agenda?
No, because you're not on the agenda until June.
But you didn't inform me. You informed me now that I'm on the
No, I believe that you were informed that you were on the, and Commander Davis, no, actually, I just elevated your title, didn't I?
She is a
Commander, I did, yeah, that's, I'm like, wait, as I said it, I'm like, is that right? I believe you did inform that it would be the June agenda, is that correct? Thank you.
But I'm still confused. Why did she have to inform me and not you?
Well, because she was the one that was giving us the police reports of when the police, after the investigations are completed, then they come to us to be discussed. Until they're completed, they don't end up on our agenda.
Can I get a copy of all the police reports that she's going to finish?
You can actually, could you come up to the mic and explain? Thank you.
Mr. Sinopoulos' investigation has been reviewed by myself, 2 other commanders, the chief of police, the mayor of the city, and I think he also talked to the city manager. And he was advised that his investigation would appear on the June agenda.
Thank you.
He was also given every single report that was written regarding his investigation, and he was also given all of the audio and video regarding his investigation. So he's well equipped to be prepared for June's meeting.
Great, so thank you.
One question, how many FOIAs did I have to?
Okay, but sir, that this is, we can talk about that, the June agenda. So you have all the information that we have at this time, and you will be,
Up to now.
and you will be on the June agenda.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You are welcome. And then the next, again, Jim, are you for an agenda item or a non-agenda item?
I think I'm on an agenda item having to do with the mental health board.
Okay,
Is it-
so why don't we do that when we get to the mental health board? I just couldn't tell here. Thank you very much. Can we get approval of the township bills?
Move approval?
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Expansion of senior services. We have, you are hiding behind the pillar. Hi. So I'm very excited about this presentation. I asked to have this on our agenda, actually even before I was the chair of this. I believe this is an area that we need to talk more about, our senior services, and continue to explore what we're doing, how we can do it in a more coordinated way if possible. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I can start without the technology going, so we'll speed it up a little bit. Thank you, Melissa. So I'm Christina Ferraro, Assistant Director of Community Services, and I'm just here just to give you a brief overview of all the senior services in Evanston. There's a wide range of services, and one of our goals is really, like Alderman Burris said, to get the word out, and that's one of our goals right now, is to do some intense marketing in order for others to know what's going on. So on the second slide, you're going to see that I listed a lot of the services and programs and some of the activities that we do. And one of them includes the snow shoveling program, which was extremely successful this year. We had over 100 volunteers who were out there volunteering to shovel snow for seniors and people with disabilities. That was a huge increase over the years. There we go. Yay. Okay, so a lot of people ask, how old am I when I'm a senior? What age is that? And that all depends on whether that's AARP or the federal government. But in Evanston, it's someone who's 55 years and older. And that's really depending on where we get our funds from. Some of the government sources that we get it from, sometimes you're 60, 62, 65, but overall it's 55 in Evanston. And these are some of the demographics here, and you'll see that there's a continuous increase in the number of seniors in Evanston, the largest being 65 to 74 years old. And that's over the past decade, and that does follow the global trend in aging demographics right now. So the other is, where do all these individuals live? So you'll see 20% of seniors in Evanston are living in long-term care facilities or senior housing like the Mather Three Crowns. That means 80% are actually living out there independently, which is something that's actually unusual for communities, that it's that large of a number. These are the facilities that are licensed and regulated in Evanston. This is where Audrey visits on a regular basis. And we have 4 boards, committees, and commissions that deal with seniors in Evanston. The Commission on Aging, the Levy Senior Center Board, and the newly formed Evanston Age-Friendly Task Force, which I'll explain in a little bit. We're also really fortunate to have the Levy Senior Center Foundation. They are solely in existence to raise funds to supplement Levy Center's operating budget. And last year, they spent $55,000 on helping us replace a lot of the equipment at the Levy Center for its 10-year anniversary. So we're really fortunate to have them. Some of our partnerships that I've listed here, public and private, from CETA to the North Shore Retirement Hotel, and actually the North Shore Senior Center, because Liz Gordon is here, Evanston Social Services Office. We do a lot with them. There's nothing that we can actually do on our own, so we're really appreciative. Another of our partnerships is with the Evanston Police and Fire Foundation. They have funded this project, and the seniors help collate the project, and the Levy Center actually distributes them. And it's basically a plastic pouch that residents can put all their vital information in. So if EMS comes to your home and you cannot speak for whatever reason, they have all that information there. And it's for seniors, people with disabilities, and even people who live on their own. And we're really grateful that the foundation has been funding that, and that's in its third year, I think. And another one of our partnerships here is with the North Shore Senior 7, the Evanston Social Services Office. They used to be Evanston Skokie Valley, so. We have 356 grandparents that are solely responsible for their grandchildren in the city of Evanston, and 27 families that are participating in this monthly support group, and it's actually held at the Levy Center. And then more of our partnerships with lots of our volunteers, over 100 volunteers with over 10,000 hours of their time, and that's everything from boards to running some of our programs. Robert Pantoga is an attorney that comes in with free legal advice with the seniors, and that's twice a month. And we're really fortunate to have them, as well as some of our grants I've listed here. The Ombudsman program provides advocacy in long-term care facilities, and now we're also receiving a little bit of funding for the work that Audrey does in the community. And another grant that we have, this is to provide meals at the Levy Center and at Fleetwood Jourdain, and it offsets the cost of meals for people 60 and older, so no one would be denied a meal based on their income. And it's at the Levy Center 5 days a week and at the Fleetwood Jourdain Center once a week. And this is also really bringing a lot of people out and engaging, whereas it's not only just about the meal. Something new at the Levy Center is the Silver Sneakers Fitness Program. This is pretty recent, probably within the past year. Major health plans offer this program as part of their Medicare piece, and we received equipment for the class, and the instructor received training, and the Levy Center is reimbursed for each visit, and it's free to the participants. And we're really trying to make transportation more accessible to seniors in the city of Evanston. We have the Levy Center bus and the subsidized taxi cab program. We are still a designated registration site for the RTA. And the Fleetwood Jourdain Center continues to meet. They have their foster club that meets on Wednesday afternoons. And we try to go regularly to try to do presentations on what's going on in the community. I was there a few weeks ago, and I think they said they have 12 people over the age of 90 that are in that group. So the Levy Center offers computer training and fitness discussion groups. There's about 5 basketball teams, and some of the basketball players are in their 80s. And the Levy Center received national accreditation, and we will be applying for accreditation once again next year. So it's really proven the accountability and quality of service, and we met the 9 standards of senior center operation, so we're really proud of that. And back in 2011, we started a new program, the Evanston Benefit Card, where we have individuals come to prove age, residency, and income, and they can qualify for all these programs at one time. The subsidized taxi cab program. It used to be the vehicle sticker, now it's the wheel tax discount. The recreation program fee assistance is a scholarship for recreation programs. The yardway stickers, as well as a handyman program. And then merchant discounts are discounts throughout the community at any of our local businesses. And we're always looking for more merchants to help us with this program. So if there's any referrals, we'd be happy to take them. And regardless of income, residents age 80 and over qualify for the programs regardless of their income. So to date, we have over 3,100 people who have the Evanston Benefit Card, and almost 1,500 of them are over the age of 80.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just the merchant discounts just sort of popped out at me, and I know this is the first time I've actually heard of it, although I see it every once in a while around town, and I would definitely invite you to, and I'm sure you're doing it now, work with our local chamber as well. I'll follow up with Megan Jones from Community and Economic Development. I'd love to get you on our meeting agendas for both our West End and West Village group.
Okay, that'd
Thank
be
you.
great. Levy also provides Medicare counseling and assistance with the Benefit Access Program, and that's the formerly known program as Circuit Breaker. So the Benefit Access Program covers the state programs, so people with disabilities and seniors free transit, as well as the license plate discount. And the prescription discount is also really successful. All residents can use this card and get a discount on prescription drugs regardless of age and income, or even if you have existing health insurance. Last year, we had 258 residents use the card for 485 prescriptions, and they saved almost $8,700 last year. And city staff also participate in the planning of the Aging Well Conference and Film Festival. We assist in the promotion, we accept the registration and do the logistics and provide transportation to the conference. So this Wednesday is the film festival at the Evanston Public Library, and then on Friday morning is actually the conference itself, and it's being held at the Three Crowns Park over at 2323 McDaniel. And the keynote address is actually myself and Susan Churko, and we're going to be talking about age-friendly Evanston, which is next year. So I think I was here almost a year ago to talk about it, and it's really built some momentum. The mayor has appointed a task force of 9 individuals, and they are overseeing the initiative. We're working on just assessing the age friendliness of the community and then developing a 3-year action plan to be part of the World Health Organization. And we conducted 5 meetings last October, and we had 225 individuals come hear more about this. And then we also conducted Feedback Week, and we asked opinions about local senior services. And there were 375 surveys that were actually returned, which was outstanding. We had 13 distribution spots throughout Evanston, and we also had them electronically. So we're going to unveil the results coming up in a few weeks at the YMCA, and it's a free breakfast. Anyone is invited, really just to unveil the results and sort of do a kickoff of the program. And these are the individuals who are on the age-friendly task force. I know there's 2 here tonight. Susan Churko and Susan Cantor are here tonight. And they've been wonderful. The entire group has been meeting for the past 4 months, and they're really out there working with city staff and nonprofit agencies and different businesses and talking about what we're going to be doing with this, with the age-friendly project itself.
What other boards or committees is the age-friendly group working with?
Right now, it's the Commission on Aging, the Mental Health Board, and
Okay.
there's one more.
Okay.
I'm going to come up with it.
I've been forgetting names all night, so it's okay.
Human Relations. I knew if I looked at it. So if there's any time that I can get the word out about what the senior services do, whether it's coming to ward meetings or getting information in your newsletters and whatnot, I'd be happy to do it. If you have any other questions, happy to answer them.
Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Ferraro. You mentioned 356 grandparents who are solely responsible for raising their grandchildren. How many children does that amount to? You see things from the senior perspective. I'm wondering from the how many of our children are being raised by their grandparents?
1,000.
1,000 by 356 grandparents?
Yes.
Wow. Thank you.
Could those 80% of our seniors are living in their own home?
Yep.
And I can't remember from the chart. Do we know they're living in their own home, and how many are living alone in their own home?
I don't, but I have that information for you on the U.S. Census. Sure.
And with that population, what are you seeing are the biggest risk and the biggest challenges
We're seeing a lot of people who are living independently who may not be able to, or who are not reaching out to get the support services that they need. Sometimes we're finding this out through their neighbors or their children. A lot is also going on with the handyman program when they request services and the handyman arrives and calls and says, you know, we may want to get out there and see. A lot of people are just wanting to age in their home. So we're trying to say, let's age in the community, because sometimes aging in your home is not always possible.
And when something like that happens, do we have a list of relatives to reach out to? Is there a way that, what are we doing if we don't know who to contact for someone is called, or, you know, the
We work
ambulance
with a
is
lot
called?
of-
Do we have that information anywhere stored?
Most of the time. We work with a lot of other nonprofit agencies that sometimes there's other caseworkers that have already been involved, or agencies that have been involved for whatever reason. And sometimes they're really happy just to give you that information themselves. So
Okay. And just one more question and one more comment. And what is the most efficient or effective way for seniors in the community to access services? So you have a neighbor and you're concerned that your neighbor may be having some issues, or a caregiver may not be treating your neighbor as well as they could be, or you're just overall concerned. What would be the best thing for someone to do who's concerned about a senior living independently that may be having problems?
I think the top two methods that we're getting that information right now is either they're going or stopping at the Levy Center and talking to staff, or they're calling 311. And those phone calls are all being logged, and then they're being routed to the individuals that need to get out there.
Okay. Alderman Braithwaite?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, let me say thank you very much for the report, as well as acknowledge all the executive directors, managers, and volunteers that are here on behalf of our seniors in town. I actually have two quick questions. One was to get an update on the handyman program.
Handyman program has been terrific. We were really fortunate that we received the funding from CDBG as well as the township.
Yep.
And we now have a different contractor on board, and it's been terrific. So I don't believe we have a wait list. Yay, I'm right. Audrey Thompson is here and validated that for me. We do not have a wait list.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
And then the second question that I have is more, I didn't really see it addressed, and I've had a difficult time identifying good quality home health care providers in town. And do you have a way of screening or recommending a home health care company for seniors that are looking for those services?
We do not actually recommend, but we have a resource guide, and also the library has their online resource guide. There's a lot that we work with. I mean, you can also access it, but there's a lot of individuals who cannot for whatever reason. So that's what we're working with.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Alderman Grover?
Thank you very much. I'm interested in how well you feel our seniors are accessing 311 as either a resource or a referral source or just for information.
I think they're using it.
You do. You
Very
get the
well.
sense that they
Yes.
know it's out there.
The actual
It's a
picking up the
call
phone and
for them,
calling them,
which is
yeah.
the easiest way, and we've been able to do a lot of outreach for them to
Yes.
encourage them to use 311.
It's difficult at first just to get used to the concept, but I think all of that has gone away. All the apprehension
Great.
at first, yep.
Great. So is 311 then producing for you good data on what our seniors, they don't identify themselves as a senior when they call, but if they're requesting a certain type of service or information, perhaps, does it give you data on or information about the kind of requests and what they're needing? And
They're usually just sent straight to us.
Yeah.
And we try to provide them with as much information as possible so they can try to refer out to some of the agencies in town. So we've been working together on that. But a lot of times it's calling 311 and then they get a little bit more technical and then they transfer that call. So
Great. Thank you.
Alderman Tendem?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a big proponent of the file of life, and I know that's something I've just started to try to promote it in my ward, and I think it could use a lot more attention. I don't know how successful we've been to date as far as getting that word out, but if you could explain a little more about the the kinds of information which are really critical to first responders, and the fact that there could be additional information about next of kin and all that sort of thing that would certainly simplify any situation where the person, and this is not seniors alone, but the person is unable to communicate.
Absolutely, and they put their medical information on there, like you said, prescriptions, allergies, emergency contacts, DNR sometime, power of attorney. A lot of that information can be listed on the sheet. The front side is in English, the back side is in Spanish. The information is placed in a plastic pouch, and then that's placed in the freezer. And the EMS in Evanston have been taught, you know, that's the first place you're going to go look. So I've had some other individuals contact us from different communities and say, can we do that too? Or can we just have one? And we're happy to give it to them, but their EMS is not trained in the same manner. But yeah, for sure. We give it out with our welcome packets over at the Levy Center, and they're also at all of our community centers and at the library.
So they, usually the fire department will bring them with them when they come to make presentations, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
So thank you. And one last comment. When my mother comes to visit, she always likes going to the Levy Center. I think she broke in on one of the meals, and they're like, do you live here? And she's like, no, but my daughter does. So
That's okay. She's still
thank you for
welcome.
making her very welcome.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. And our next on our agenda is presentation from the Evanston Health Advisory Council, Tobacco 21.
Good evening. I'm Yvonne Thomas-Smith, Health Director, and I have with me Don Ziegler, who is our Chair of the Evanston Health Advisory Council, and Dr. Tim Sanborn. They're here tonight to talk to you about Tobacco 21, so I'm going to yield the floor to them.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chairman, Alderman, members of the Health Committee. By way of introduction, I grew up in Evanston. Went to Willard School and Northwestern Medical School, traveled out east to Boston and New York, came back here in 2000 to be Chief of Cardiology at Evanston Hospital in the North Shore Health System. I've stepped down now as Chief of Cardiology, but now I'm concentrating on community activity and health resources with Avanda. My other passion is addressing childhood obesity. Tonight I'd like to talk to you about a program that's gaining some momentum, and that's called Tobacco 21. This year represents the 50th anniversary of the U.S. Surgeon General's report on smoking and health, and all the efforts that have been made since that time with public education, smoking cessation programs, health policy efforts such as smoking bans, as you've done here in Evanston, tobacco taxes. Again, Evanston is one of the leaders in that area. The smoking rates in the United States have decreased from 43% in 1964 to approximately 18% when last evaluated in 2012. However, smoking remains the #1 preventable cause of death in the United States. It kills about 500,000 Americans and costs the nation almost $200 billion in health care expenses and lost productivity each year, and this is data from the American Heart Association. Tobacco 21 started in a community outside of Boston, Needham, Massachusetts. It was the first town to adopt this change in the age to purchase cigarettes from 18 to 21, and this was done back in 2005. The decline in high school student smoking in Needham was triple that of neighboring towns in the area. Therefore, the hypothesis that they would just shift their purchases to other nearby towns was proven false. Since that time, 7 other Massachusetts towns, 1 Hawaiian county, have adopted Tobacco 21 laws, and I just heard from Alderman Grover and her sister out in Melrose, Massachusetts. They just passed this law last month. So that's now 8 towns in Massachusetts. Similar legislation is being introduced in a growing number of communities in at least 3 states, New Jersey, New York, and Utah. Further dissemination of this Tobacco 21 law could represent a critical opportunity for public health law to reduce one of the most important health risks facing the United States population. By way of background, 31% of smokers progress to daily smoking early in childhood. There's been scientific studies that indicate that the adolescent brain has a heightened susceptibility to the addictive qualities of nicotine. And according to a recent Gallup poll, 90% of adults who smoke claimed if they had to do it over again, they wish they never would have started smoking in the first place. Here is the data from Needham, Massachusetts. This is in 2005, about 12.9% of schools, high school students were smoking. Surrounding communities, 14.9%. After the Tobacco 21 legislation, you can see a dramatic drop in high school students that were smoking in Needham, whereas there was only a slight drop in the surrounding communities. This is some data from our own Evanston Township High School on use of alcohol, marijuana, cigarettes, and prescription drugs. You can see we're making an impact in terms of total cigarette smoking in the high schools. However, if you look at this by grade, again, this is part of the survey that Avanda's group has worked on. We're doing very well in the early grades, but once they get up to grade 12, you're close to 15 to 20% are smoking in a 30-day recall survey. And this is rather a disturbing slide showing that most of the kids get their cigarettes from friends. A few weeks ago, the Evanston Health Advisory Council voted 9-0 to strongly recommend Tobacco 21 laws so that Evanston can be one of the health leaders in Illinois. Thank you very much.
Any questions, committee? Alderman Gerber?
Thank you, Doctor, very much. Could you help us with who is on the Evanston Health Advisory Council? Who are these wonderful people who serve with you?
Well, I've recently joined the committee. I think Avanda can fill in.
Help us with the...
Or perhaps Don Ziegler can tell you.
The roster?
Thank you for the question. It's about 25 members that attend every other month. We've got both hospital representation, both districts, including school-based health center, the health office. We have community members from the faith-based community. We have someone from Larry Suffernan's office, and so it's about 25 members of community stakeholders that we've engaged since 2005, me coming on to the health department. They are appointed by the health director, and some of the members actually invite others to attend, and we don't turn anyone away, but our bylaws require that we at minimum have 25 membership across the Evanston community. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Don Ziegler is correcting me. He's the co-chair, and Dr. Bruce Dublin is the co-chair. Yes, sir. He doesn't want to be responsible for being the chair. He's the co-chair.
On this issue, I can foresee that some of the pushback would be about, the civil libertarian objection to taking away one more thing that people can do between the ages of 18 and 21, which is to buy cigarettes. I think the first slide said something about selling cigarettes, but it's really purchasing of cigarettes by citizens between the age of 18 and 21. But the data is pretty compelling that you really can curb long-term tobacco use when it's not so easily accessible during those critical years when you're more susceptible to developing an addiction. It's interesting because in talking to my sister in a suburb of Boston that's very close to Needham where this began, and in Needham I think it started in 2005, so it's taken some of these municipalities a while to create a constellation of of neighboring municipalities that are doing this. I'm assuming so that it's not easy to go next door and purchase cigarettes in a neighborhood, in a nearby city. And I asked my sister Martha whether there had been any objection, and she said, at least in Melrose, by the time it came around in last month, that there didn't seem to have been much objection at all. And in reading the posts of the article from Melrose, Massachusetts, one objection was that the kids are going to find cigarettes anyway, but I think the data that you've shown us demonstrates that maybe some of them choose not to look very hard for cigarettes when it becomes that much harder to find them, to buy them, let's say. And darn those parents who are providing their children with cigarettes.
I think
Alderman.
I
go
think,
ahead.
just a comment. As we've seen with other health policy issues, we started with limiting cigarettes to 18 years of age, and now I think we have data that limit it to 21, particularly when they're susceptible to peer pressure and things like that. This could be a significant impact.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays along. I'm sorry. That's right. With it seems to be a trend in legalizing marijuana. Is it going to be 18 or 21? And
Is your mic on?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
My question was about pot. Actually, it was more of a comment.
Wonder why the mic was off. All right.
Yeah. And how this would align with where some states are going and legalizing marijuana. I don't know if in Colorado and Washington State the age is 18 or 21. I don't know offhand, actually. This is a really interesting policy question with strong data behind it.
Alderman Holmes?
I thought one of the interesting things was that some of the parents are willingly providing and some are unwillingly providing, and I think that's just like alcohol. But also I wanted to comment, Alderman Grover, in terms of the membership. I'm one of those CME members of the Health Advisory, and for those of you who know what CME is, that's Christmas, Mother Day, Easter, when you go to church. So I go every once in a while.
Okay. And any other questions? Thank you so much. Do you need anything from us on this? Just presentation at this point, you're correct? Great, thank you. Next on our agenda is review of April police complaints. Any discussion?
There's only two this time.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Fantastic. Next on the agenda is the lease renewal for Evanston Children's Choir. Is anybody speaking to this, or we just, what was on here? We are not singing.
We're not singing. I would move approval of the lease.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Next on the agenda is the amending and revising City Code Title 5, Chapter 1, Property Maintenance Code. Is anybody here to speak? Can we get a second?
Yeah, would you?
Good evening, Yvonne Thomas Smith. If you have questions, basically this is housekeeping. This is cleaning up a code that's outdated. Community and Economic Development updated the International Maintenance Code in 2003, and we are enforcing it as if it were amended, and so we want to assure that we're in alignment. So this is housekeeping to get into alignment of a code that we are currently enforcing. And as you know, the Community and Economic Development property maintenance inspectors have transitioned and integrated into the health department, so we wanted to assure that we had proper alignment with the International Maintenance Code.
Great.
Wonderful job. You guys doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the mic.
That-
Just
that's-
wanted to
that's
share
fine.
that your department is doing a wonderful job on behalf of my residents in my ward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I will relay that to staff.
And we appreciate that the code is being cleaned up. I know we've been doing it over the last 5 years or so. It's Anyway, all those in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. Next on the agenda is the Mental Health Board Funding and Funding Priorities presentation. And Mr. Bobkowitz, you're kicking this off?
If I may, Madam Chair, and
Of course.
members of the committee. A new topic for you. As you know, the City Council has been providing funds for Mental Health Board grants for some time. It's a large amount of money, and in fiscal year 2013, including the monies from the township, it totals $748,000. I think it's an appropriate topic for the committee to consider, to look at this funding, see if the amount makes sense, and see if the process makes sense. So it was one of my to-dos for 2014, and I reached out to the Mental Health Board, attended their meeting on January 9th, shared some thoughts with them, asked them to ponder those thoughts, and I came back on March 13th to hear their responses to sort of the challenges that I presented to them. The first challenge was the reforming how the board allocates funds to focus on some key areas rather than maintenance funding that they currently provide agencies, and requesting an annual funding level from the City Council in the spring prior to their review of funding applications. I think, as you all know, the recommendation of funding generally comes to this committee very late in the budget process. It's placed in. There's usually a placeholder, and then it's placed in, and I think, if you'll recall, even with the adoption of the township budget this past year, some question of where all that funding was coming from. So in addition to looking at how the money is allocated, perhaps changing the process so that the City Council sets a dollar amount at the beginning of the cycle rather than looking at the dollar amount at the end of the cycle. So the board deliberated the issues. I believe they have provided information as well attached, so I'll let you review that, and certainly I'm sure the representatives here to speak to it. But I'm asking the committee to think about this, to think about the funding that is provided for these sources. Just to give you an example, the $748,000 is provided for social services agencies. The City Council provides $11,000 for arts agencies in Evanston. So, there's a lot of money that's being provided, certainly to organizations that are serving the needs of Evanston residents. But I think as we look forward at our budget, is this the best way to make those allocations? Is the dollar amount appropriate? So my recommended actions would be that the council and this committee consider a funding level for fiscal year 2015, which would be next fiscal year, of an amount not to exceed $809,286. That's a 3% increase from the funding amount for 2014. With the township going away, this would all be coming out of the general fund, and so we would make those allowances within the budget to make sure that those dollars are there. Also asking that the council consider directing the board to revise its allocation procedures for use beginning in fiscal year 2016. So the process that is happening for 15 would go unchanged, but would be to look at the process for 2016, then to ask the board to come back to the committee in September with an update, and then final recommendations in November of 2014 for a change in policies then for the selection process in 2016. Again, realize this is an issue that this committee and the council has not had a chance to look at. Wanted to make sure there was plenty of time for community consideration, for council deliberation. So I'm recommending that any changes that would be made would be for a year from now, so for the 2016 funding cycle versus the 2015 funding cycle. But I think it would be useful for the council in any event to look at the total dollar amount so that it's the first decision of your budget process rather than the last decision of your budget process. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions. I know there's community comment, and I'm sure representatives from the Mental Health Board as well.
Can I just have one clarification on the $748,000 for social service agencies? Does that include money from CDBG money?
No, it does not.
Okay.
So that's an additional piece.
Okay, and what are the other additional pieces that the city funds? And I apologize for putting you on the spot. And you may or may not know this, and Yvonne may actually help out. In addition to the Mental Health Board, CDBG, what are the other amounts of funding from different buckets of money at the city that go towards social service agencies? There's something that you and I have talked about. I've probably talked to many of you, as well as I talked to the Mental Health Board and Sarah Flax about, is we're siloed. And we're not coordinated, so we're not impactful in the way that we could be. and to know all the different sources for social service funding, including now with the township. I mean, we have such an amazing opportunity now, and I think we've been doing over the last several months since we've combined, to really have a holistic 360 approach to helping people. So I was wondering if you could answer that.
Ms. Flax is here. The lion's share of additional funds would be CDBG.
Yeah.
And that
there
total dollar
anything-
amount for 2014 approximately?
Social services, but that doesn't include what we give to the city departments and.
No, that-
I just want to make sure.
So-
That's all I need to know.
Right.
Thank you.
And so the answer for the folks at home was $300,000, and these are, again, for agencies that are not part of the city. So certainly, Ms. Flax and her colleagues in community development, Ms. Thomas Smith and her colleagues in the health department, you've heard from Christina Ferraro and her colleagues from Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. So we have multiple departments that also touch these things, and with the addition of the general assistance portion of what we do in the health department, that's an additional piece now that's also falls under that umbrella, and that's $1 million plus a year that we provide in general assistance.
And
But that would have been the same as township. I mean, those
Sure,
would be
no,
township
absolutely.
funds.
But if
so
you're looking at
that's-
buckets of funds.
I know, but I'm just saying, she was asking what additional.
Right.
So we already
Yeah.
have that.
So CDBG, the mental health board allocation, what we provided through the township, those are the main buckets.
Okay. I think when we're talking about this change and thinking about a change in policy and how to be target and be more effective on those bigger issues that were the systemic issues that we're facing for this next meeting, or our June meeting, it would be helpful to have that in, I guess, black and white, those different areas, those different buckets of money, how much, and where are how many people are being funded out of CDBG that are also being funded from the mental health board that may also be funded from another source. It could be a different bucket of money. So we're getting a bigger picture and not looking at it as, okay, it's only, let's say it's $750,000 for mental health board. Is that all we're doing? And so just to have it much more comprehensive. That would be, I think, extremely helpful for deliberations. And am I getting nods of yes here?
Well, and you're also getting nods of saying, yeah, that would make it a better, but to make it a clearer picture, we have to also understand that even in CDGB, it gets a little confusing because, say an agency applied for, I think it's public facilities or what they'd be able to apply for that wouldn't have anything to do with the services that they're providing to citizens. So we have to understand the difference in terms of how that funding flows. So it gets to be, we have to really, if we're going to do that, and I think it's a good idea. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm just saying the picture has to be real clear in terms of how we're looking at that, because you can't compare the buildings with, or whatever else they might be applying for. I forgot the other categories, with the actual services that are going to people who are in need of
Come on up, Sarah.
basic needs.
Yeah. Alderman Grover?
I think some other data that might be helpful to this too is
Thank you.
First and foremost is in my mind is that for this year 2014 we adopted as a city goal services for at-risk families. And I think it was pretty overwhelming that we felt this was a priority, and it's one of our 6 city goals. And I've been thinking for a long time about whether there's a better way for us to support the funding of human services in Evanston. But I also want to see this from the agency's perspective, too, and additional data points would be, and I hate to add another layer of administrative, reporting for them, but the Mental Health Board and the agency's already produced this as part of the funding cycle, would be what percentage of the city's allocation, the city's funding, accounts for what percentage of the agency's budget. So there are some agencies that an allocation of almost $100,000 is a significant portion of their budget. And in times of state funding drying up and or being late, I'd like to have a good picture of how important is our funding to the agencies that come through our purchase services. And
how that's leveraged, because
And-
a lot
and-
of times the
and-
money is leveraged to get
Right.
additional funds to come into the community. So I mean, there's
Yeah,
lots
so
of
a lot of
pieces to
times,
this. It's just
the Mental
not-
Health Board's allocation of funding is used to meet a required match for federal state funding for
Right.
specific programs. It'd be good to know how much of that is all tied in together as well. But I think, Madam Chair, do you want to move to citizen comment now before we get in too deep? Because there's a whole lot more to this. And I do see this as a multi-meeting discussion because we're talking about
Absolutely.
how do we realize our goal of enhancing building services for at-risk families with the partnership of some really core agencies in Evanston? Is there a better way to, like
Yeah.
you've said, maximize
What we have.
what we have, and at the same time, use and appreciate all the good data that comes from those agencies, mostly through the funding process. So it's more than, they're doing more than counting how many people in the door and out the door. They've got these subjective and very, I think, meaningful outcome measures, as well as the accountability through the funding process that, according to the memo that we got from the Mental Health Board, is more meaningful than most other types of purchase services arrangements in municipalities. So,
And again, if I may, Madam Chair, Alderman Grover, I think another key piece of this, regardless how the format may change, is dealing with this earlier in the budget process. Because
Yeah.
I think that the dollar amount really is it's after you've already received the proposed budget. I think it's more meaningful for all concerned that either the council sets as a policy what a dollar amount is, or sets some other parameters so that you're not looking at the recommendation, really after the proposed budget has already been produced.
and inevitable disappointment. I think it makes sense to treat these allocations the way we do every other budget item, which means increases every year, perhaps, rather than chipping away at it.
And I think the sooner that the council can provide that direction, the easier that is then to incorporate, in the whole $250 million.
There's a
budget.
value to predictability
Yeah,
in
and
this.
in addition to what we're spending, is it possible to also have what other agencies that are grant-making agencies in the community are giving towards social services? So obviously, the Evanston Community Foundation would be one of those agencies. I'm not sure of all of the different agencies, but that's also another piece of the puzzle, is the other agencies that are funding, how much of that's coming to the community, and where again, are we partnering to look, again, holistically, not in a piecemeal fashion. So I think that would be helpful.
And I think, Alderman Burris, a lot of that is reflected in the reporting that the agencies do to the Mental Health Board as part of their budgeting and the reporting requirements. So,
but looking at the whole big picture of Evanston Community Foundation gives.
That's all
300,000
listed in the reports to the Mental Health Board.
But I meant for the overall
Yeah,
community,
yeah.
not just for the individual groups.
Right.
So that's, I think, a key piece. So I appreciate that.
You bet.
So I think I'm going to do the presentation first, and then citizen comments from people that want to talk about the Mental Health Board. Does that sound okay with everyone? And I would like to say thank you for meeting, for you and Allison meeting with me was it last week already?
Right.
Wow.
Last
How time flies.
Thank you.
And I want to say that they took time out in their evening to come and have a really long conversation about the tough issues that you're facing as a board. Not everyone agreeing. I explained that on the city council we always agree and we don't disagree on anything. And so I didn't know what they were doing over at that board. But I do appreciate that, and listening to, I think that the dialogue was very good about how to move forward, and you want as much, I think, impact as we do up here. And I met with Eric Witherspoon and Bill Geiger last Friday, and suggested they come and talk with the Mental Health Board about their Cradle to Career project. Obviously probably some people are from your board are on that, to come and talk with you about how to work with them as well when we're looking at this longevity approach to helping our community. So hopefully they'll be in touch with you as well. So Please go forward.
I'm just going to make a few comments because you have received our memo. I'm Sandy Johnson. I'm the vice chair of the board. And my associate Allison is not feeling well tonight, who is the chair. And for that reason, she isn't here. Well, but there were other problems. Yes, yes. So you all know what the Mental Health Board does. There are 9 of us. We meet at least monthly, do a lot of work behind the scenes. And something that I would like to mention about the whole budgeting process and the application process is we ask, as part of the application, what grants are received. And agencies don't particularly, some of them, they told us last time, don't like listing every single grant that was received. But that is all part of our, we look at that as far as our deliberations are concerned. And I happen to be one who thinks that knowing up front how much money we'll have will be helpful as we go through our allocation process. We're currently funding 15 different agencies, ranging from about $6,500 to $100,000. And I would like to see us return to really the unified budget hearings. I think Alderman Holmes and I were there for many years. And
Alderman Holmes always suggests this.
Yes. Well, it's very helpful. It saves everybody's time, and I think that is a way of being, open so that you would know what Mental Health Board knows, what CDBG is funding, et cetera. Right. So I'm hoping we can do that, certainly not this year, because applications were due Friday, and we have received applications once again from 15 agencies. We thought it would be 17, but 2 agencies decided not to apply this year. And I'm not sure when the city manager would tell us exactly what that amount is, but if it can be... Pardon me. If it can be in June, it would be great. Okay. Well, anyway, that would be, I think, very helpful. And we're certainly willing to work with your committee in any way that we can as far as looking at moving forward. We firmly believe that supporting the vital services from early childhood to senior care fosters healthy families and healthy neighborhoods. Many of the residents that are served by the agencies are in crisis, and others, because of the service provided, the crisis is avoided. So I think that we're all on the same page in wanting this healthy community. And again, thank you for your support, and we look forward to moving forward. So I'm happy to respond to any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Just a bit of historical context. The name Mental Health Board is kind of a misnomer now because although it was formed under the auspices of the 708 enabling legislation back in the 1960s, it was in 2002 that then Health Director Jay Terry and Roger Crum suggested that the Human Services Committee, which had been deliberating probably, I think it was then $530,000 worth of purchase services, consolidated with the Mental Health Board. And so the Mental Health Board took on more than just what were then mostly mental health-based programs,
Yes.
To include
Exactly.
a much larger variety of human services. So the Mental Health Board in 2002 took on, I think Senior Services was one of those agencies and services that came to the Mental Health Board. We call it the Mental Health Board, but it's really our Human Services Board.
Exactly.
In so many ways. And we call it Mental Health Board really because of a funny anomaly of state law and that we have yet to decide to do away with. Yeah.
But we're good at that. Other questions? Thank you. And I have
You're welcome. Thank
Mr.
you.
Bobkowitz, for the budget allocation, a recommendation coming from the committee to council, do you need specific language for that? What would you like from us?
Well, I think it's, the committee first needs to agree that it makes sense to separate the issues, that if you're willing to agree to make that allocation now, then I would ask that you move that forward to the council. I mean, I think clearly the other issues probably
Right, for
remain
longer.
in committee, but if you feel comfortable recommending to the council a dollar amount, again, it's 3% increase from the allocation, the joint allocation between the city and the township for 15, then I would ask that you make that motion this evening.
Okay.
If the committee's comfortable with that.
All right. Do we, Alderman Grover, and then other discussions on this?
Let me make that motion then so that we can put it on the table for discussion. I'll move recommendation from this committee of a fiscal year 2015 funding allocation to the Mental Health Board of $809,286, which represents last year's allocation plus a 3% increase.
I would second that.
And then Alderman Holmes, you had your light on, so did you have a comment, or were you just seconding?
No, I want to have a question for the city manager in terms of next steps, because I would really, and I'm happy to hear you say that you're open to looking at the old unified budget system. I'm not saying the same thing, but we often make mistakes by throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you know. But to look at that, so what would be the process for really beginning those kind of talks? Because I think there would be beneficial to the agencies as well as to the community.
Well, Alderman Holmes, members of the committee, I think that's something you could give a charge back to the Mental Health Board. Certainly city staff could do that. We continue ourselves to look at the human services piece and how we can better arrange our staff. And as you know, the dissolution of the township really has caused us to look at that. So I think certainly that's on the table. And if you'd like to talk further, Director Thomas Smith, we, I'm sure, have some narrative, historical information we can provide the committee as to how, for those who were not part of that, how it worked before, so we can bring that back to your June meeting with
That'd be
some of
great.
the answers.
Right, because
to these.
that I think would be, that would include then what you're asking for in terms of all
Yes.
of the funding pots and everything that would go into that, okay?
Yeah, I think that would be great for the June meeting.
Very good.
Okay.
Would you guys be willing to have part of that conversation as next time too? Great. Sorry not to call you out as you're already sitting down. Great. And
You're just blessing us. So
no, it was not.
Thank you.
Lots of saints, lots of popes, but no, I'm not one. So thank you. And I know we have several speakers that I would assume want to talk about what for next time, so we can be thinking about it over the next month. Jim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Jim Hunick. I'm Executive Director of the Northwest Center Against Sexual Assault, and we're a rape crisis center. And we're new to Evanston, and we're also new to the Mental Health Board. 2014 represents the first year that we've applied for and received funding from the Mental Health Board. And I just had a few comments in regard to this entire issue. First of all, I certainly support the idea of having a budget amount early in the budgetary process. I mean, that's how I run my agency. I need to know what the dollar amounts are first before I can figure out how to spend them. Another point I want to make is that for us, the Mental Health Board support is not maintenance funding. It's money that made it possible for us to come to Evanston and provide services in Evanston. And so we've used that money to leverage additional monies so that we can have a location here in Evanston and provide those services, free services, to victims who are in need. We currently have 2 part-time people, and starting next month, we're going to have a full-time counselor providing a free rape crisis service to Evanston residents. So I just wanted to make it clear that these funds are not just maintaining and used for our operating expense. They're really helping us to expand our services, because in our work, access to services is a huge issue, and that's one of the reasons why we don't charge a fee for our services. probably 75% of our clients are low-income clients who come for our services to get unlimited counseling. Another point I would like to make in terms of the transformational nature of the work we do is, when you help, a 20-year-old victim who's been sexually assaulted on campus and who's had to leave school and unable to study because of flashbacks, intrusive memories, and you help her recover from that, that's, for her, transformational. I don't know how you quantify that in a community sense, but the work that we do really is trying to restore victims so that they can continue their lives. The research on child sexual abuse is that child sexual abuse victims are more inclined to be poor, to suffer from depression and anxiety, to have mental health issues. And so, those are all impacting their ability to raise a family, earn an income, have a career, and have a good quality of life. So that's important. I know the United Way model has been suggested as a direction to go because they've scoped out different areas that they've wanted to address. But even United Way recognizes the need for crisis services. And in fact, as United Way has gone through this transformation, our organization has gotten more United Way support than before because they know that sexual assault and sexual violence has a significant impact on people's ability to become educated, to earn a living. And so I don't think we can discount the value of crisis services in this whole process.
Thank you. Next speaker is Seth Green. And I forgot to mention, you have 3 minutes. Well, definitely, maybe you, only.
Why am I not surprised that you mentioned that before I come up to speak?
Sorry,
it's fair
Seth.
warning.
No, it wasn't really personal.
Well, thank you, Alderman Burris, and thank you all. I just want to add and echo what was just said. The services that we provide, we truly believe are transformative, and there are many others who are leaders of Evanston-based nonprofits here who feel the same way, and we appreciate the process we're going through. This is a significant investment by Evanston, and we're here to say that it is a greatly appreciated and vital one. So just to answer a couple of questions that have come up, Alderman Grover and Alderman Holmes mentioned this question of leverage and how are we putting this investment alongside others. And so just to give you YOU's story, we have a $3+ million budget. We have over 50 people in our staff. We serve over 1,000 kids with high-quality supports. The Mental Health Board provides $100,000 of support for us, so we leverage that 30-to-1 over the course of the year. And even though it could then be seen as 3% of our budget, it is an absolutely foundational 3% because it's stable, because it shows local support and buy-in when we go after federal grants, and because we can use it to cover what is a constantly changing funding stream. So if that were to go away, for example, last year, we would not have been able to serve the kids at Chute Middle School because even though we were growing as an agency, because of sequester, they cut the specific line item opportunity that served Chute. So what we did is use it during that year to make sure that we were still able to provide consistent coverage. So I just want to share that I know sometimes we get into these debates where it's maintenance versus transformation. We believe that last year and every year prior, what you did was transformational for the residents of Evanston. And so we thank you, and we are excited by the opportunity to continue this. And just one other point to yours, Alderman Burris. I think one of the things that's so great about Evanston being involved in human services is that it does present this collaboration opportunity because the agencies here, from early childhood to senior care, are funded by a common group, which is the city. There's a set of common expectations and a set of collaborative goals that are set. And so while many of us have very different funding streams for the rest of our portfolio, that's the connective tissue, and it makes a huge difference. And then just to echo one last point of Alderman Grover, and hopefully not run over the time limit, I would just say that your point about the core value for at-risk youth and families is so vital to what makes this community great. As a resident speaking, what I love about this place is not just that it has great preschool for my daughter, but it also has great preschools through the Child Care Network and the Infant Welfare Society for all the kids of our community. And so that's what we chose when we came to Evanston and what we look forward to continuing. Thanks for your support.
Thanks. Next is Cass Wolf. Great. See, a name I could actually pronounce. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cass Wolf with the Infant Welfare Society of Evanston. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So we receive funding for our Teen Parenting Services program. I haven't done the math like Seth did, but it's $72,000 and change on a $2.4 million budget that supports our organization. We have 48 staff in our organization, so we are making an impact in a number of different ways in Evanston. I would like to speak to this notion about looking at funding and a different formula, different way of doing the funding, and echo what has been said before. One of the concerns I would like to bring up, just to have a different point, is that if the notion went forward of using this money with fewer agencies, one of the fears I have is that they would get a larger pot of money. I'm not afraid of that, but that in a couple of years, it might be seen as time to move on to some other organization. And small nonprofits like ours don't have the ability to recover from $150,000 suddenly being pulled out. The program would likely end. And that then will create more instability for the families we serve, for the children we serve, for the staff that we work with, for the whole program. So the way our budgets, mine and most likely all of the rest of ours, is that there's not a lot of gravy here, and we're really creative at doing what we're doing, and that these kinds of services we provide really create the safety net, which makes me proud to live in Evanston. And I'd say that the small amounts of money you've heard about, the larger amounts, they really are for programs that make a difference. And so cutting money for those programs mean often those parts of the agencies get cut away. Thank you.
Chris Baer.
Thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about programs, because that's what I do. And I want to just bring your attention to two programs at Child Care Network that have consistently made life-changing differences for Evanston families. And the first is scholarships.
Could you speak into the mic? Otherwise, people watching can't really hear what you're saying.
Oh, that would be awful.
Well, it's important that they know what you're doing.
Okay. The first is scholarships. Once a parent earns more than $29,000, the family is no longer eligible for the state's child care subsidy. A single parent with one infant could see their annual child care cost increase from $2,700 to over $17,000. And that's on a salary of $29,000. Through CNE scholarship assistance, annual fees can be reduced to $8,500, giving the family a little over $20,000 for all other expenses. Without the CNE scholarship support, the family would have $12,000 for all expenses. And that's a sum that's $3,000 less than federal poverty guidelines for a family that size. The second program I want to draw your attention to is Learning Together, which provides on-site services at child care programs for children who are struggling with social, emotional, and behavioral issues. Prior to these services, children were unable to remain in care due to difficult behaviors. Parents struggled to find alternative placements for them, sometimes having to leave their jobs due to lack of care. Through Learning Together, parents and teachers are getting the support and information they need on how to handle the disruptive behaviors. And most importantly, the child is getting the help he or she needs to be successful in school and just maybe in life. Thanks for your support.
Thank you. Andrea?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee. Thanks for taking the time to talk about this important issue, and thanks to Chris Baer for talking so eloquently about important programs and services that we provide at the Child Care Network of Evanston. I'm Andrea Densham, the Executive Director of the Child Care Network at Evanston. I'll try to stay within 3 minutes.
You don't have to talk that fast. It's all right. 3 minutes is really a long time.
It's just a normative thing, but often, like Seth, I get reminded that I can go on. But I think this is actually a really exciting moment. This is an important dialogue to have. It's not just an important dialogue for us here in Evanston, but across the country, because the challenges that are happening at the federal level with sequestration, as well as with some of really substantial challenges in our state, and I know as many of you talk with your colleagues across the country, our state is substantially challenged, especially in its budgeting and in its timely payments. And its payments are not in a way that I know this city would like to operate, but it is one that many of us who have diversified funding streams have to address every day as we're trying to provide quality services to citizens of Evanston. And as you know better than I do, that all of our cities take advantage of their budgets to try to represent the priorities of our communities, the priorities of us as citizens. And I know that you take this very, very seriously. This is a great opportunity for us to have a deep dialogue about how we best leverage the resources that this city has been allocating, and how do we ensure that the services are delivered to the agencies. And Alderman Grover was asking some really important questions about the stability of the agencies, and I would like to take that down to the citizens, because I think what we do most effectively, and I think our scholarship program is a great example of that, is to fill in a gap that we call a cliff, that as Chris described so eloquently, people living just barely above the poverty line are trying to get education, trying to keep a good job, maybe even getting just a couple dollars more, fall off a cliff and then have to make a decision about whether they stay employed, whether they continue their education, or whether their child stays in high-quality early learning services. By engaging us as a community and prioritizing early learning services, we're able to bring those to not just one agency or two agencies, but across the early learning spectrum, and giving our citizens choices, because as other folks have said so eloquently before, there's no reason just because you're poor you have to not have choices. And I think that that's a priority that we have to think about as our community engages in this effort. I welcome and I hope that you can bring all of us to the table. I think we have some incredibly smart minds here in Evanston to talk about these hard issues, to come up with great solutions, some that may be from the past, that may have been ones that we need to think really deeply about. And I really thank you for bringing up Cradle to Career, which is a great initiative that I've worked really hard on, and so has Seth Green and many others in this room. I have to say that we don't intend that to be a funding stream. Cradle to Career is really intended. Yes, absolutely. And that leveraging and coordinating ideas is something that we all need to think about. But we're really thoughtful as we engage in that process and ensuring that we're leveraging all the resources we have. So ensuring that as a community, as citizens, my family, my spouse who teaches in District 65 and my ETHS student, we're here because we care about here. We believe this is a place that emanates the values of who we are, and we want to work together to try to identify what those things are and have a good and open and transparent process. And thank you for your time.
Great. All right, and I know that there were others that didn't sign up. We took the sheet first, so would you like to, yeah, go ahead, you. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Mary Rose. I work with Metropolitan Family Services, and I've worked there for 24 years. I testified at a unified budget hearing back in the 90s. I remember that very well. I just want to let you know that all the social service agencies work together. Everybody in this room knows each other. We all work with each other's agencies. We all refer to each other. And we all need each other. None of us can do it all. And even services that the City of Evanston provides in other formats, like the produce truck coming to the Robert Crown Center once a month, or Family Focus with some of the clothing closets. I mean, there's services that agencies provide that other agencies don't provide. So we all need each other. Metropolitan Family Services is a really large agency, but locally we're on the smaller side. But we have to, because we're connected to our downtown big office, we have resources through them, like we do measure our outcomes for we have a family support and prevention program. We do home visits with really high-risk families. And we do a parenting stress inventory to all those parents. And we can measure where exactly these families are feeling their most stress, and then we can measure the progress they've made. And it's a really good outcome measurement tool that we use. But we have that because our downtown has, statistical nerds that do all that for us. We don't, because everybody in our office is working. And we don't have people on staff who have the leisure time to do statistical work and analysis like that.
No. Statistical work is hard work.
It's wonderful, but we don't have time to do it. We're doing home visits. And we do also have to prove to our downtown office that we have local support to provide services in order to justify, our office even operating here. So the money that we do get here, even if it's a smaller amount, shows we do need to demonstrate community support. So I guess we just want to make sure that you know that. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry. Now I am waving to behind you. Come on up. Hello.
Hello. My name is Kate Mahoney, and I both live at 2538 Grosse Pointe Road here in Evanston and have had the pleasure of working at Peer Services, doing addiction prevention and treatment for almost 30 years. And I will tell you, Alderman Holmes, that when we turned our funding proposal in last week, my computer file is UBP FY15, because the unified budgeting process to me was such an essential way when we brought together many community organizations looking together to the funding process. So I worry that if I should get hit by a bus, my successor would not understand that that's the mental health board funding application. But I do want to say again how grateful I am to live and work in a community that cares so much about people in need. And I will say particularly people who struggle with addiction struggle a lot with experiencing stigma and lack of access to services. And this community, back from the day of originally starting out with the 708 funding and evolving, has had a commitment to really helping people who in many other communities would be overlooked, would be discriminated against, and would be cast aside. And so I am incredibly grateful for the generosity of the citizens and the leadership in this community. Alderman Tendon, you and I share the history of having worked on Beehive when they existed here, again, another organization that worked with people that in many other communities would have been left, again, behind. So I think the values of Evanston, while I do recognize that our community is shifting and changing, and I still think those core values are widely held about caring about people, and that's why people come here. I think the investment that Evanston makes in the nonprofit system pays off in so many ways. Not only does it help us with when we need local match, like we have a grant through the state that helps us provide transportation to teenagers who need treatment and parents of children 17 and under who need to come for their own treatment or for family sessions. That requires a 25% match, and we use some of our mental health board funding to help us with that. But I would also say, having been through all the, we've talked a little bit in conversations about this, about the shifts that United Way has made in terms of trying to have impact. But part of why they did that, we should really look at some of the history, was partly is their need to explain accountability to a very large Chicago metro area with some national headquarters here, but who had some accountability to corporations, other places. In Evanston, we know what we're doing here on a much smaller scale. many people talk about the losses that happen through those United Way shifts. And so I really want to encourage people to not lose sight of the really special thing that we have happening here, which is people who really know the agencies well, who have been able to make referrals from constituents and or neighbors and family members, and to really invest in this really rich system. And while we serve a wide range of needs from early childhood to senior services and people who do work with individuals and families, we, as Mary Rose mentioned, we really have created an amazing network here that's tied together. I think that's why we're seeing this amazing process of the Cradle to Career initiative that many people are investing in. It's taking some levels of collaboration to a next step. And so I would encourage us to continue looking at how we've built on that. And I think part of what we may need to do is work better about how the information that we put into the mental health board applications and quarterly reports get conveyed back to policymakers and citizens.
And I need you to wrap up.
So I want to thank you and talk about any ways that we could work together to help people understand the investment. Thanks so much for your ongoing support.
Thank you, Kate. Did anybody else want to speak that did not get a chance to sign up? Well, that's your last chance. Going, gone. All right. Thank you. Again, thank you for the presentation from the Mental Health Board. Thank you for all the agencies coming out. Similar to what we did with, I think, the work here with the township and the city coming together, we're making a bigger difference. And I think if we're doing this in a coordinated, much more comprehensive way, we can find a way to be much more impactful in the overall goals for our community. So I look forward to working with all of you going forward. Please go home. All right, our last agenda item.
You have a motion on the table.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's a motion. I'm sorry, all those in favor? Aye. Sorry, Jane, that your motion was so long ago. Thank you. Yes, some of those we have to go back and remind ourselves exactly what they were. That one was easy. Homeless management information systems. Sarah, do you want to talk about it?
I move approval.
All right. Anybody have a second? Anybody have any questions? All those in favor? Aye. I don't think I have any communications. Thank you, Sarah. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right. We're adjourned.